Okay, so are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Today we're talking all about confidence.
Ooh, good topic.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't need a little more confidence? I think we can all agree that we could all use a little boost every now and then.
Yeah, for sure.
And we are going to be referencing this text called How to Build Your Confidence.
Perfect.
So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at this.
Yeah.
But, before we kind of go into some of the details, I kind of wanted to get your take on why is this even something that we talk about? What is it about confidence that I think is so intriguing to people? And why is it something that, so many people are looking for?
Well, the simplest answer is it just feels good. You
Right.
know, when you're confident, you feel good, you feel capable, you feel like you can take on the world.
Right.
And when you don't have it, you really feel that lack.
Yeah.
So, it's natural. I think that we all would want more of it.
Yeah, totally. And I think what I'm finding so far in reading this is that, and I think that this is such a common, that you hear about confidence. It's like, oh, you just think positive. Or,
Right.
just like put yourself out there and fake it till you make it. And what I'm finding interesting about this particular text is that there's some actual techniques that are being laid out.
Yeah.
So then it's not just this vague like, oh, just, try to be more confident. But it's like,
Right.
it's kind of giving you these tools that you can actually implement.
Right.
And one that really jumped out at me, and I'd love to get your take on this, is this idea of visualization.
Uh-huh.
Now, we hear this a lot in like sports psychology. You hear about athletes visualizing, success before, a big game or something like that.
Yeah.
But this text is taking it a little bit further and saying, okay,
Yeah.
how can we use visualization to actually build our confidence? And they're even talking about kind of feeling those feelings of confidence. So it's not just seeing yourself succeed. It's actually like feeling what that would feel like.
Right.
Have you found that that's an effective tool for people?
It really can be. And, the thing about visualization is it's more than just daydreaming.
Right.
It's really about creating a very specific, vivid experience in your mind.
Right.
And by doing that, you're actually kind of rewiring your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to believe that this thing that you're visualizing is possible.
Yep.
So, for example, if you have to give a presentation,
Right.
and you're really nervous about it,
Yep.
you can sit down beforehand and you can visualize yourself giving that presentation, feeling confident, feeling calm,
Right.
hearing the audience respond positively.
Wow.
And the more you do that, the more your brain starts to believe, okay, this is something I can do.
That's so interesting. I mean, do you think that this is something that, because I know for me, like I'm a very visual person, so I wonder if this is something that like, is that something that might be more effective for certain types of people, or do you think this is something that anybody can benefit from?
I think anybody can benefit from it, but I do think that the more you can really kind of immerse yourself in that visualization,
Right.
the more effective it's going to be.
Yeah.
So if you are somebody who's very visual, you can really use that to your advantage.
Right.
But even if you're not, you can still, practice this and make it a part of your routine.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, with the visualization, that's kind of tackling things from like an internal perspective. But the text also goes into like the other side of it, which is those limiting beliefs that we have.
Yes.
And, how those can really sabotage our confidence.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you've seen that have worked for people to help them overcome these limiting beliefs?
Well, I think the first step is just being aware of them.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have these negative thoughts running through our heads and we don't even realize it.
Right.
So just starting to pay attention to that self-talk.
Right.
What are you saying to yourself? What are those messages that you're playing over and over again in your head?
Yeah, and those can be so insidious because they're so subtle sometimes.
Yes.
You don't even realize that you're doing it.
Exactly.
It's just like, oh, this is just how I think.
Right.
I actually had an experience with this that I thought was really powerful.
Yeah.
When I was working at my old job, I was terrified to speak up in meetings because I had this limiting belief that everyone in the room was an expert. And I was not. And so if I said something, I was just going to sound stupid and everybody was going to judge me.
Right.
And so I finally like got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to get over this because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I did this exercise where I actually wrote down the belief,
Okay.
everyone will judge me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to kind of challenge it. Like, okay, is that really true?
Right.
What evidence do I have for this belief?
Mm-hmm.
And when I really started to look at it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have no evidence. This is just fear talking.
Yeah.
And once I kind of like had that realization, it was like it took so much of the power away from that belief.
That's great.
And so I started to kind of, push myself to speak up more.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Nobody judged me.
Good for you.
In fact, people were really receptive to what I had to say. And even, said like, oh, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that before.
Awesome.
And so it was like, it was such a good lesson for me in like realizing that these limiting beliefs can really hold us back from doing amazing things.
Absolutely.
If we let them.
And I love what you said about challenging those beliefs, because that's such an important part of it. A lot of times these beliefs are based on, past experiences or things that we've been told, but they're not necessarily true.
Right.
And so when you start to question them, you start to kind of poke holes in them.
Right.
They lose their power.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of leads to like the next piece of this, which is this idea that confidence is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not like a destination.
Exactly.
It's not like one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm confident.
Right.
And then that's it.
You've arrived.
Right. You've made it to the mountaintop. It's a process, and there's going to be ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you're going to feel more confident than others.
Yeah.
But it's about kind of like continually working on it and building that muscle.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important to remember, because, a lot of times people get discouraged because they think, oh, I tried this one thing and it didn't work.
Right.
So I must not be able to do it. Right.
But it's like learning any new skill. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes, maybe just trying different things to see what works for you.
Right.
And so just being patient with yourself.
Yeah.
And recognizing that it's a process.
Yeah, totally. And so as we kind of wrap things up here, I'd love to get your take on what's the one thing that somebody listening to this should really take away from this deep dive?
Well, I would say that the most important thing is to remember that you have the power to build your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's just given to some people and not others.
Yeah.
It's a skill that you can develop.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with those small steps, like we were talking about with the visualization, with challenging your limiting beliefs, with taking action even when you're afraid.
Right.
And the more you do those things, the more confident you will become.
That's great advice.
And, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
There are lots of resources out there.
There are books, there are podcasts, there are coaches.
Yeah.
And so, if you're feeling stuck,
yeah,
don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that that's a perfect place to kind of end our deep dive for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights on this topic.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure as always. And for those of you listening out there, we hope that you've enjoyed this deep dive into confidence. And if you're looking for a little boost, we highly recommend checking out this text, How to Build Your Confidence. It's full of great tips and techniques.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.
Awesome.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.